one that is very, very important. The Declaration of Independence says you have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness is abstract. What is that? Well, the original clause said life, liberty, and property, because it's all about property. But as they were talking about it, Benjamin Franklin argued that you have a right to be in love, right? Can you put love in a bag? Can you give me like 5 pounds of love? No, it's an abstract. And so Benjamin Franklin changed the word property to pursuit of happiness. It's supposed to include property and then oh so much more. Unfortunately, I think it has confused the issue these days. But the Fifth Amendment goes back to life, liberty, and property. It says you cannot be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Now the question is, what is due process of law? We drag you in the court and the judge goes, guilty. Is that due process? If you get dragged into admiralty court and the judge says, I'll tell you what the law is. Guilty. Is that due process? Well, due process, if you look at Article 3, the Supreme Court has jurisdiction under common law, equity law, and admiralty law. Due process would include common law, and there are no common law courts available anymore. So it's almost impossible in today's day and age to get due process. But the amendment does say you cannot have your life or your liberty or your property taken away from you until we've had due process of law. So when I got pulled over, the police officers were planning to call a tow truck and impound my car. And so I told them, you're violating or about to violate my Fifth Amendment rights. No, sir, we would never violate your Fifth Amendment rights. I said, well, it sounds like it to me. You're going to deprive me of my property, and our conversation is not due process of law. And he goes, oh, and he started thinking about that. And I said, if you persist and impound my car anyway, I will file a lawsuit against you, and it's going to take me 6 or 12 months, but at the end of the year, I'm going to own your house and your car. Oh, don't get carried away, sir. And then they finally gave me my keys and, let me go on my way. So it really does help if you know the Bill of Rights, and it also helps if you have the courage to back it up with a little bit of, machismo there every once in a while. So, can't be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor can private property be taken for public use without just compensation. This is the clause that people point to. They said, see, the government has a right to eminent domain. No. Well, it says we can take private property for public use. But it says, but you can't do it without just compensation. Who decides just compensation? If I come into your store to buy something, do I look at it and go, I'll give you $1 for it? Maybe at a swap meet, but not at a store. There's a price on it. If you want it, that's the price you pay. This is my land. You want to build your freeway through it? Okay, I've got a price, but you're going to pay my price. You're not going to come along and condemn my property, and then when my property is, getting 10 cents on the dollar, come along and buy my property for 10 cents on the dollar. It's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen because I'm a strong Second Amendment supporter. I don't have that little Alamo wall around my property, but that kind of gets in the way when I'm shooting back.
Well, the real problem with this is they're talking about not as public use anymore, but public benefit.
Right. Well, again, they keep changing the rules. I don't know how many of you have ever read Animal Farm. The animals have got the rules on the side of the barn, and it says, all animals are created equal. You know, and then as it goes on, it says, but some are more equal than others. That's what we're doing. I mean, Animal Farm was fiction. This is the United States. The government is going, some people are more equal than others. Our shopping mall is more important than the fact that this land has been in your family for generations. You know, somebody else is going to be paying us more taxes than you're paying. And so this is, you know, for the benefit of the government. The government has no intrinsic benefits. Why is the government here? The government is here for our benefit. And if it is not benefiting us, then we can alter or abolish it. They talk about, you know, state interest. The state has no interest. Get your interest out of my property. Your job is to be here to protect my life, my liberty, and my private property. And you're not doing it. Most of what our government does is unconstitutional. I'm outraged. Another clause, I'm going to go to the Constitution itself. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution tells Congress all the things they are allowed to do. We've got this list of things, and we're going to let you, those are your privileges. What do you think Article 1, Section 9 does? Tells Congress what they can't do. Shouldn't be necessary. If these are all the things on, your doctor puts you on a diet, and you can have salad, you can have tofu, you know, you can have those, you know, wonderfully tasty rice cakes. Do you come home and add, you know, German chocolate cake at the bottom? No, it wasn't on your menu. It wasn't on your diet. Well, we've given Congress a list of things they can do. Can they pencil in Social Security Administration? Can they add Department of Education just because, like, oh, we want people to be smart? No, you can't add responsibilities to your list. We, the people, do that. Anything not in Section 8 that government is doing is by definition unconstitutional. Article 9 explicitly tells them things they cannot do. And one of the things they cannot do is they cannot use bills of attainder. Bill of attainder was a piece of paper that said, you have committed a crime, you committed murder or whatever, we're going to take you out and burn you at the stake. But you've got this farm, all this property around. So, according to ancient custom, that property was attainted. You committed the murder, and so all of this property is kind of like poisoned with that crime. And so the government would originally take your property. You don't get a chance to leave it to your children. Your children have just lost their inheritance because you had committed some heinous act. The Constitution explicitly forbids the government from using bill of attainder. It says the government is not allowed to come and just grab onto your property when you were guilty. So we're going to change the words to eminent domain, and now the government can take your property and you're not guilty? Does that make any logical sense to anybody here? The government is here to protect your property, not to take it. And I don't care if you call it eminent domain, bills of attainder, or a shopping mall. If I own it, you're not going to get it. I don't care what the Supreme Court says.